We are Derek and Kari Stolland, and we've been married 17 years. We have been at our church for, we figured, since about 1985.
We both grew up at Christian Life. Our kids go there now, but when we actually graduated from college, we lived in Minneapolis. And then we decided to move back. We love Rockford, and we think we're here for life. So when we first got married and moved back here, we really were praying about having a family, and we felt like Kari, we wanted her to stay home and take care of our children. But at that time, we made nowhere near the amount of money that we could do that. So we began to pray that God would give me a different job. So I found another job, and we really thought that that was God's answer for it. It was a commission job, but they said that the averages were going to be right at what we were believing for. But the first year and a half, and almost 2 years really, were probably some of the most difficult times we ever had financially. In fact, I was on commission and I actually owed the company $20,000, and we found this out just a couple months before our first child was born. So not only were we not making progress, but we felt like we were way behind. I literally went to God one day and said, God, you have to give me a plan. And I felt like immediately he said to us, I want you to give $1,000 this weekend. And I said, no. I said, I want you to give me a real plan, because that's not a plan. That's not being very practical. You know, we had a savings account of about $1,200 at that point, and that literally was all we had.
So Derek comes to me and tells me he thinks God has said that we need to give this $1,000 offering. And I'm pregnant at the time, about 5 months pregnant. But I remember thinking, okay, if that's what you think God has said to do, then we better do it. I think he struggled with it more than I did. I think to him that money really was security. It was all we had.
I remember exactly where I was sitting in the sanctuary. And I gave and I cried. And I literally was saying at that moment, God, you got to come through, or we're not going to be able to do this. I'd love to say that the next week there was all this money coming in, and it didn't happen. Actually, for 5 months, it was still a huge struggle for us. But we knew at that point that God was going to come through at somehow, some point. And we always say, we wish he would have come through earlier, but then you think back and you think, well, what if he would have come through 18 months earlier? We wouldn't be telling this testimony, because then it wouldn't have been a testimony. It wouldn't have been that time of growing for us, and God knew that. So over the next couple months, not only did we get a chance to pay off the $20,000, but we actually, the day after our oldest was born, we found out that we got a check in that actually would cover all of that and give us an extra $10,000, and that really allowed her to stay home, and we've been able to have her stay home now for 12 years. The church doesn't need our money. That's not the whole purpose of giving. The purpose of giving, that God set it up, and I don't understand it all the way, but God set it up to change our hearts. That's really why he's connected finances and giving with the heart. And yes, the church benefits from that, but it's not really even the church, it's the lives at the church that are benefited. Did the church need my $1,000 at that point? You know, maybe it helped some lives, maybe it didn't, but it changed my life forever.
When you give to the Lord, there's always going to be that thought of, but now I don't have this in my account anymore. And that's where faith has to step in. And I believe God to be true to his word. And sometimes you have to tell yourself that over and over again. But do you trust God, or do you trust yourself to come through? And God's always going to be faithful.